as if I need to choose a side between black and the opposition, quote unquote. But I choose the human race above all races. And that makes me a sellout. And so be it. Yeah, I don't question why you believe in God. I question it when you use it to legislate our laws. Enforcing your belief system that isn't fair to all. And you got the nerve to tell atheists not to get involved. That makes me appalled. It's a bog of your brain that everybody's not religious and don't think the same. They took God out of schools. Now you bitch complain to correlate that why elementary kids were slain. That's insane. If you think that's true, then you're an idiot. Wish I could express that sentiment a little more educated. You just spread science on the daily and reap the benefits from your cell phone vaccinations, leaving the internet. That's the shit that pisses me off more than a little bit. Using your faith to justify why you're a hypocrite. I won't change my mind unless the proof is legitimate. Until then, my mind's made up and I ain't giving in. Another thing is, people think that I'm so abrasive on the internet because I speak my mind so openly about being an atheist. And they think that I won't and don't do it in person. Yeah, I do. But I don't do it to the extent that I need to knock on motherfuckers' doors and force my views and opinions on them. I'm not a fucking asshole. I spend my time on music and not people. 9 out of 10 times you let them get close and they'll deceive you. I spit secular lyrics. Now these people think that I'm evil for the simple fact that I'm not. Quit to believe you. Honestly, I don't need to. I rap raw like sushi food. I'm sick of people thinking everything I say is you. I kill lyrics till they turn to a death sentence. That probably went over your head like a damn fitted. Yeah, you won't get it. Not that it will make a difference. You probably pissed that I use hip hop to diss religion. You probably dismissed the fact at one point I wasn't religious, not stepping on grass and not break my mother's back. Superstitious until I realized that shit was just ridiculous. Like claiming aliens built the motherfucking pyramids. No longer trapped in a prison of thought crimes. Don't need to think twice about it. Already made up my mind. I'm just fine. So can we just leave it at this? Like, I wish I could have a moment where I meet somebody, they're like, yo, are you an atheist? I'm like, yeah. They're like, all right, cool, let's go get a drink. You know what I'm saying? But maybe never.
Fucking awesome. Again, that was from AdeKwit off of his album Awkward Silence. The song is called Made Up My Mind. You can find AdeKwit on Facebook. Just search for AdeKwit. I'll put a link to his Bandcamp site in the show notes. If you want to check out his full album, just go to adequate.bandcamp.com. Okay, so ever since the beginning I've started doing this show, I've been talking about how I've been wanting to do interviews with people. And I haven't quite figured out a format for how to do that yet, because this show is usually only supposed to be right around a half hour. But whenever I record interviews with people, we end up fucking talking forever about everything, and it ends up being like a 40, 50-minute interview, and I just don't have any way to condense it down to a 5 or 10-minute conversation to add in as a segment to the show, because the interview ends up running longer than the entire show will be, so I don't know how to do interviews. So what I'm trying to do as a recurring series to do interviews with my friends is just to do this thing I'm calling 5 questions with my Facebook friends, where I just ask the same 5 basic questions to each person, and they can give a quick response, and that way I'll be able to edit it down to a 5 or 10-minute segment, which will fit in perfectly with the show. So this is an experimental thing that I'm trying, and I got my friend Dominique Miller from Chicago, who does her own podcast. She agreed to come on and try out this new format to see how it works. So with that, here goes 5 questions with my friend Dominique Miller. Hi, Dominique. Welcome to Adamant Atheism.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, if I remember correctly, you run a podcast also, right?
Yes, I do.
What's that called?
It's called Welcome to My World. And, you know, sadly, there's some other enterprising soul out there that has also named their podcast Welcome to My World. So if you look it up on blogtalkradio.com, it's Welcome to My World with Dom.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm trying this new segment with interviews from my Facebook friends, and this format is hopefully going to be the one that works out, so you're the first one I'm trying this out on, so can I throw 5 questions at you, like one at a time, and you can just answer them however you want?
Go for it.
Okay, so first one. Were you raised religious, and did you ever used to be a believer?
Well, I was not raised religious, and I was encouraged to just kind of check out every system of belief and non-belief that there is. So I kind of checked everything out, but no, I really was never a believer.
Oh, okay. So you were never a believer, so there was never a time that you were a believer and then stopped believing then?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Okay. That fucks me up.
I wish I could have been like, yes, and your podcast changed my life. How about that for an answer?
Oh, that would have been awesome. Okay, so I guess that makes the third question irrelevant, too. It was supposed to be, how did your family react to your dropping belief? But so your family never were believers either?
No, they're really liberal Democrats, and they're highly educated, college educated and beyond, so they're not, they're just not into kind of fairy tales, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Do they use the label atheist?
No, I've heard them call themselves like humanists and secular humanists, but no, they really don't.
So, like, if asked directly, like, would you consider yourself an atheist? You don't think that they would say that, or they would just, like, avoid it and say, like, secular or humanist?
I mean, if somebody said, "Are you an atheist?" my parents would definitely both say, "Yes, we're atheists."
Oh, okay. Awesome. Do you identify as atheist?
Well, I do, but I also identify as a pagan, and if you're familiar with that, it has nothing to do with worshiping deities. It's about just the cycles and rhythms of the earth and acknowledging, the world and the earth around you, under your feet.
Sure.
But no, I don't believe in any God or anything like that. So yes, I suppose I'm an atheist.
Okay, awesome. Do you consider yourself an activist of any kind?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, what kind of activism do you do?
Well, I'm running for local office for my county board, and I've always been very liberal and into supporting anybody who is marginalized, any communities that are marginalized or stomped on or kind of ignored or treated poorly. I've been to, several pride parades. I've been to several just booths at many different events over the years. I've met Bernie Sanders.
That's
kind
awesome.
of been throwing his message out there. What am I not an activist of?
Sure. Yeah, I just went to my first Pride Parade this past weekend, and it was amazing.
It is so fun. I can't wait till November. They've got some really cool ones coming up, in the Midwest at least.
Okay, and do you find religion harmful, and if so, why?
Well, I do find religion harmful, and I guess, not that I have to preface this with you, but there are people that claim that they get something positive out of it, but if you're basing all of your internal beliefs on something external to yourself, to me that seems very unhealthy, and it seems like it could be easily shattered or twisted or just used to support whatever pre-existing biases that you have. So
that is a very interesting take on it. I never really looked at it like that before.
Thanks. It's just, external versus internal locus of control. If you believe that the man upstairs or whatever God controls every aspect of your life, then there you go. You've got an external locus of control and you have no responsibility, and you don't need to take the blame or the credit for anything that happens in your life, and it's not your fault.
Sure, that's kind of like why I think it's shitty that you can just be absolved of your sins just by asking forgiveness from God, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of trying to make it better with the victim or trying to improve yourself, you can just fuck up and then ask God for forgiveness, and then all is well again. Mm-hmm. That's not taking any kind of responsibility. It's vicarious redemption.
Exactly. That's a great phrase. I'm going to have to steal that from you. Vicarious redemption.
Well, I stole it from Christopher Hitchens, so he gets the credit there.
No wonder it sounds familiar. Okay.
Right. Okay, well, that's the 5 questions, so thanks for being on, Dominique.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me be, dare I say, your guinea pig.
Awesome. All right, that was my friend Dominique with my first attempt at trying an interview with my 5 questions series. I'm still going to be looking for anybody and everybody who wants to participate in this. So if you're interested in answering my 5 questions, send me an email at adamantatheism@gmail.com or just send me a private message on Facebook. Looking forward to hearing from you.
This is Ari Stillman from the Gaytheist Manifesto podcast, and we did in fact evolve from filthy adamant monkey men.
So I went to the theater this past week and I saw a movie called Weiner. And what Weiner is about, it is a documentary about former senator, or maybe he was a representative, from New York named Anthony Weiner. And I remember Anthony Weiner from 10 or so, probably more years ago, being just incredible. This was back in my transformative days from when I used to be a hardcore conservative Christian to where I am now. So this was like the in-between period, and he was definitely one of the ones who had me swayed towards the liberal side. This guy was an absolute champion, an absolute hero for the people. You can see him destroying Republicans on the Senate floor, or on the House floor, I'm not sure which one it was. You can look at YouTube videos with him kicking ass, taking names, not holding back, doing his fucking job, doing exactly what you would expect from an absolute Democratic champion for the people. I loved Anthony Weiner. I still do. That's why I went to go see this. And as a lot of people know, he was caught up in a sex scandal, which wasn't even a sex scandal. It was so petty and juvenile. But America is fucking petty and juvenile, so of course it got blown all out of proportion and basically ruined the guy. Now, what happened was he was sexting women, which is just like talking dirty and sending naked pictures over the internet. Anthony Weiner never met with these women, never met them in person, never cheated on his wife, never had sex with them, nothing. The whole extent of it was sending dirty pictures over text. Now, the thing is, he got caught doing this one time, and he fell out of the spotlight for a little while. Didn't really do any kind of activism or anything with politics. He resigned and all this. And then he started to make a comeback. And he did really well in the polls, and he was making a really awesome resurgence with doing this. And this is when the documentary started filming. So you see him after his fall from grace, and he's starting to build his campaign back up, right? This is where they started filming again, or this is where they started filming the documentary, was when he started making his comeback. So he's doing his campaign, he's killing it in the polls, he's in first place, beating out all the competition. Then all of a sudden, in the middle of the filming of this documentary, the same thing happens again. He gets exposed a second time, after apologizing to his wife and the community and saying how he's never going to do it again and all this. And then he fucking does it again. Very stupid move on Anthony Weiner's part, but it happened. And the second time around, it basically ruined his career. He fell out of the polls. I think he ended up in 5th place after the voting came in for the mayoral race he was going for. And it ruined him. And again, he didn't fuck any of these women. He didn't even meet them, never physically touched them, saw them or anything. It was all just dirty texting, like people do. And the thing that pisses me off about this to no end is that none of those things have any bearing on how he would do as a politician, as a mayor, or as a senator, or as I was hoping for one day, the presidency. And now all that's ruined because of a couple fucking stupid dick pics. They weren't unsolicited. They were asked for. It wasn't like he raped anybody. He didn't even violate anybody. The only thing he came close to violating was his wife's trust, and that's a private issue. That shouldn't fucking matter in the public sector. It shouldn't have any bearing on voting or how somebody stands on certain issues or anything. And, of course, it doesn't help that the guy's last name is Weiner because, of course, the jokes wrote themselves. Journalists were falling all over themselves to write the most hilarious headlines using the name Weiner along with his scandals. And that's how petty America is. We'll demonize somebody for having a silly name and for doing stupid bullshit like texting dick pics. It's just so... It's heartbreaking. It's devastating because this guy, he really has the passion and the drive and the desire and the fire in him to do something great with himself. And sure, he does have some of the blame for going behind his wife's back like that, being a public figure and putting his shit